What is going on, everyone? Enzo Lorenzo here. So pumped for match day one of the Champions League. There are just some sensational ties on hand. You got PSG and Liverpool, Inter and Tottenham, Barcelona, PSV. Who else is Schalke, Porto? There's just so many good teams in the Champions League now. Napoli going over to Red Star Belgrade, Galatasaray, Lokomotiv Moscow. Monaco and Atletico is today too. Club Brugge, Dortmund. There are just so many good teams in the Champions League these days. It is just incredible. By the way, for whatever reason, I edited the rosters, but they defaulted back to last year, so obviously this isn't up to date right now. I don't think Liverpool fans want Mignolet in goal, or some of the other guys in there. Coutinho, they probably don't want to see him, but I don't think they're worried too much. They look so ridiculous this year, so explosive on offense. Every time they hit the counterattack, they look like scoring. Just so many talented players. But like I was saying, there's so many good teams in the Champions League now. It's about 10, 15 years ago. It's like everyone would be, when the draw came out, oh, let's see, is there going to be a group of death this year? Let's see if we get one. This year it's like every group is the group of death. This is at least 3 or 4 group of deaths out there. But there's no way this game at Anfield is not going to be electric from start to finish. It'll be interesting to see whether Liverpool decide to prioritize Europe or the EPL title, or just go for both, because they have so much more depth this year than they did last year. The only things they were missing last year were first they were missing a world-class defender. They threw Van Dijk in there. But besides that, they were just missing a world-class, not that their midfield was bad, but, it was a solid midfield. But now they add Keita. I know Fabinho hasn't necessarily gotten into the groove yet, but another world-class player. And then, of course, let's not even talk about the Karius incident, but replacing him with Alisson, in my opinion, one of the top 5 goalies in the world. They are just stacked from top to back this year. So they can definitely make another deep run this year. On the other side, we have PSG, who are off to a flying start in Ligue 1. Not the most competition in the world over there. They have more better teams than people think, though. People just dismiss everyone, but it's like Lyon's not bad, Monaco's good, Nice is not too bad either. I know I'm kind of reaching a little bit, but it's not like they're playing nobody every week. There's some decent teams over there. I know nothing like Liverpool has to play week in and week out, but nevertheless, PSG off to a flying start. It'd be interesting to see how this team comes together this year. They just every year have so much potential, and for whatever reason can't fit it all together in the Champions League. It'll be interesting to see if Tuchel can bring that little extra bit of discipline to PSG. They've been needing, they totally fell apart last year against Madrid in the Champions League. They started off well in the Bernabeu. Remember, they're playing really well the first part of the game, kind of taking it to Madrid, and fell apart late, and then totally fell apart back in Paris. But they just have so many talented players all over the field, like always. They have so many good youngsters coming through too. People don't realize, because they just see the big stars. PSG has a wealth of youth players coming through. This kid Nkunku, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is a solid player, been getting a lot of games. Timothy Weah, the American, George Weah's son, he's been doing pretty well too. They have I forget him right now. They have a left back, I know, a young kid who's really good, but they have a lot of young talent coming up. Maybe Tuchel will be the one to bring everything together, but Liverpool at home in Anfield, in the Champions League, match day one, that stadium is just going to be on fire. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, even with all PSG's talent. I would not be surprised at all if this ends up being an up and down game, back and forth, or at least maybe that's just what I hope. So maybe it'll turn into a pragmatic affair, because, as you know, Thomas Tuchel is much more of a structure-oriented coach. But if it turns into an end-to-end game, I wouldn't be surprised if this game's, 3-2, 3-3, somewhere in that range. I think I'm going to go Liverpool 3-2 at home, just having that advantage of playing at Anfield. The stadium's electric. There's Coutinho with another goal. I think I'm going to go 3-2 Liverpool on this one. Moving on, we also got Inter and Tottenham in the San Siro, the Giuseppe Meazza for Inter, actually. But as much as I'd love to see Inter do well, it's going to be tough going facing Tottenham at home. Tottenham have been extremely good in the Premier League so far this year, and Inter have been just awful over in Serie A. I really expected big things from this year. I really thought they were going to be up there challenging Juve for the title. They did well last year. An amazing game. The last game of the season, beating Lazio 3-2 on the last day. They had to win in the Olimpico to get that Champions League spot. Lazio just needed a draw. Inter came through 3-2. They made some nice summer signings. They brought in Nainggolan. Who else did they bring in? They brought in Lautaro Martinez, but Nainggolan has been good, but Martinez hasn't really come through yet. He's only 20 years old. Let's give him some time. You never know. Let's see if Inter can gel as the season goes on. I mean, even if you look at Liverpool last year, they were good from the beginning. Don't get me wrong, but no one was really picking them to go become, one of the top 3 to 5 teams in the world at the beginning of the season. They were really good, but not world class. I'm not saying Inter is ever going to get to that level this year, but the point being, sometimes these teams need time to gel. We jump on the bandwagon, at the beginning of the season. It's like, let's settle down a bit. We're 4 or 5 games in. Let's see how the season plays out. But anyway, Inter, for whatever reason, they just can't get it together this year. The midfield can't connect with the attack. The problem is Icardi and even Martinez, they're so isolated at top with Inter's style a lot. It's like they rely so much on, if nothing's working, they just throw the ball out to Perisic, hope he makes something happen, hope Icardi can get on the end of something, but the fluidity isn't always there up top. They just kind of hope for these moments of brilliance from, Perisic and Icardi are world-class players, but still, sometimes you need some fluidity and goals from elsewhere. They rely so much on just those few players. They don't necessarily have that man that links the midfield to the attack. Nainggolan is more of a box-to-box guy more than a creator, but we'll see what happens. It's so early in the season. Spalletti had Nainggolan at Roma, so maybe they can make that connection work again. I know Nainggolan likes playing for Spalletti, but on the other side, Tottenham has been just so good this year. Lucas is finally coming into his own. He was always such an amazing player at PSG, but it's a PSG team. There's so many superstars. It's so hard to get into the team sometimes. He kind of fell by the wayside. There was a point when Lucas was right in there with Willian and Douglas Costa to be, Brazil's right-sided winger. And he kind of never got going because his lack of chances at club level. And even last year at Tottenham, it took him some time, and Tottenham's stacked too, so it's hard to get into their lineup as well with the front 4 that they play of Eriksen, Son, Ali, and Kane. But with Son out on, playing in the Asian, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the Asian tournament, but he's playing in the Asian Cup over there. Lucas has really taken advantage and done well. So they have that nice little extra bit of depth this year. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Tottenham went in and won, 2-0, 2-1, something like that. Even playing over in the Giuseppe Meazza. So we'll see what happens with that one. Moving on, Barcelona and PSV. PSV is not a bad team. The Dutch league has more better teams than people think. People forget about Ajax and PSV, but Barcelona just looks so good this year. They have Coutinho now for a full season. They added this kid Artur from Brazil. They stole Malcolm from Roma at the last second. Dembele has another year to grow. They just have so much talent. It's funny because, Masum Club, but they have so many, spending a lot of money these days and not really bringing anyone through the academy anymore. But they're just such a dynamic and amazing team. Messi doesn't show any signs of slowing down yet, in my opinion. They just have so much talent all over the field once again. People forget because, I know not everyone watches La Liga because it's perceived as, not being deep, which I think is a myth to some extent by, how good the teams at the top are. It makes the gap look bigger than it really is, but there's some nice teams in La Liga. But I know not everyone watches, but people forget Barcelona totally dominated La Liga from start to finish last year. I mean, look, Real Madrid won the Champions League and looked dominant in a lot of games. They struggled in La Liga. They ended up finishing third, but there was a long stretch of the season where they were barely in the top four. I mean, remember Sevilla, I know it's one-off games, but two-off games actually, but Sevilla finished like 7th, 8th. They had a negative goal differential in La Liga, and they went and took it to Manchester United in back-to-back games. So it's like, it's not like La Liga's total garbage, and Barcelona completely dominated it last year. They didn't, they were undefeated till like, I forgot, maybe second to last game of the season, something like that. But either way, I see Barcelona maybe winning 3-0, 3-1, maybe even 4-1, something like that. But hopefully PSV can keep it close. Elsewhere, we have Monaco and Atletico Madrid. I see Atletico Madrid they've struggled this year. I thought they were going to be incredible this year. They kept all their star players. In my opinion, Oblak is the best goalie in the world. I know De Gea is right there too. Everyone says De Gea, but I think that's more because of the exposure he gets playing at United and in the EPL. And in my opinion, Oblak is just every bit as good, but doesn't make... De Gea has an error in him every once in a while, and Oblak, you never really see that. De Gea is right there. They're 1 and 1A, so it's not like there's a big distinction, but in my opinion, Oblak, one of the best goalkeepers in the world. They kept Griezmann. They brought in Gelson Martins from Sporting, with their club, having the situation that they went through. They brought in Thomas Lemar from... interestingly enough, from Monaco, but they just haven't gotten it together for whatever reason this year. They played that amazing cup final versus Madrid where they kind of dominated them for long stretches, pulled away 4-1 in extra time. I thought Atletico might have a shot at winning the La Liga title this year. They have Diego Costa for a full season again, but for whatever reason they haven't gelled. Yeah, again, still early days, 4 games into the season. Let's not get too crazy, but going into Monaco, with the ageless Falcao, he shows he's still just as good as he ever was. He's a clever player, doesn't totally rely on athleticism, so he could still be good into his later age. But Monaco, they're a fun team, but Atletico is just so hard to play in the Champions League. I am a Roma fan. Last year Atletico was in the same group as Roma, but they were just so hard to play. We drew them 0-0 at home, and the only reason being is Alisson had a ridiculous game. We lost 1-0 away, because I'm just bringing that up because those are the two of the times I remember watching Atletico and in the Champions League and be like, God, they're just so hard to play. The way they set up, people look at them and know it's just a defensive team, but they have a lot of attacking talent, solid throughout the midfield, just so hard to play against. I see Atletico Madrid actually taking this one, maybe like 2-1, 1-0, something like that, low-scoring game. But if Monaco pulled, 1-0, 1-1, something like that, Atletico is just so hard to play in the Champions League, though. Moving on, Napoli and Red Star Belgrade. Napoli's been pretty hit or miss this year. I know they have 3 wins. I think 3 wins and a loss in Serie A. They're right there, hopefully challenging Juve all the way again. It's just so crazy. Last year, there's some crazy stat, like they finished with one of the top 5 highest points totals of all time in Serie A, and still finished second. So, that's just... I feel so bad for them in that regard. But they've been, even though they're 3 wins and a loss in second place, they haven't been that great this year. I've watched, I think, 3 out of the 4 games, and they've been solid, but they just don't look the same without Sarri. There's something missing. It's like last year they created opportunities left and right. This year it looks like they're more waiting for a moment of magic from Insigne. Milik is getting a start at home up top more often than not over Mertens. He's 31 now. He's getting a little older, and Milik's the young guy, but we'll see how that plays out. But Ancelotti hasn't really gotten them looking that great yet. I don't necessarily like what I've seen from them so far. And Red Star is such a tough place to play. I know people don't see all their games because of the league they play in, but they have one of the most electric, crazy stadiums in the world. Their ultras are so rabid. It's so hard to go there and play. I don't know. Maybe I am Italian. Maybe this is my heart speaking, but I'd like to see Napoli, take out maybe a 2-0. But I wouldn't I hate to say this, if Red Star won, I wouldn't be shocked, or maybe even a draw, 1-1, 2-2. If Red Star pulled out a 1-0, 2-1, somewhere in that range, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Dortmund going over to Club Brugge. I absolutely love watching Dortmund play. They always just have so much young talent all over the field. You know, Jadon Sancho, Christian Pulisic, just so much talent. I don't know if Royce is such an amazing player, but he's always injured. But they have, if you look at their roster and look at the youth on their team, I don't know who their scouts and transfer director are, but geez, they always have so much young talent. It's ridiculous. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they went and, beat Bruges, 2-3-0. Bruges is one of those teams, you see them in the Champions League every single year. But, they never really go too deep. It's hard for them to make the last 16, with the budget they have and the league they play in. But they have produced good players over the years. I believe Lucas Bilia came from them. I'm sure there's a bunch of others. I just can't think of. I know Milinkovic-Savic came from the Belgian league. I don't remember if it's Bruges or one of those other top teams in Belgium off the top of my head. But either way, I think Dortmund 2-3-0, something like that. Schalke and Porto. The Portuguese league is another league. People don't give enough credit. They have some good teams. Porto, Benfica. I know Sporting kind of fell apart this last year, so I don't know what's going to happen with them. They lost pretty much all their most talented players. So, but either way, Schalke and Porto, another very close game. I think this could go something like 2-2, something like that, 1-1. I would see this being a very even game. But either way, looks like that's everything. Covered all 8 games of the day. I cannot wait. It's just going to be an amazing Champions League year. Every year there's teams that come out of nowhere, young stars that come out of nowhere. It's just going to be incredible. I cannot wait for these games today. Hope you guys enjoy them just as much as I do. Thank you for listening to my preview, and have a great day.